Welcome, everyone, to the Coatings Talk Nooner. I'm Jim Kunkel. I'm so glad to have you here with me on this fine Monday after the 4th of July, America's 250th celebration. Today, what I wanted to talk to you about on today's Nooner is something that a lot of people have approached me related to the Protective Coating Specialist certification. And I think it's important to talk about kind of the background for the certification, the responsibilities as a PCS, which is really, it's wide opening when you think about it. And then the other aspect is going to be what's the potential growth as a professional if you do obtain the certified protective coating specialist, which is the certification would be through AMP. You would get that, and that was a combination of the legacy SSPC and the NACE certifications into its current iteration, which is a very strong certification program. So we're going to talk about becoming a protective coating specialist related to skills, certification, and growth. And really, when we look at PCS certification, why it really matters today in today's coatings industry is that the PCS as a designation is really a benchmark of excellence. It shows that you have the capabilities, you've got the core skills, you've got the right mindset, let's say, when it comes to work with specification, project documents, managing projects. I mean, even working in conjunction with contractors, inspection firms, working with asset owners out there, engineers out there. So it's really kind of an advanced competency type of a designation for you. And the role of the PCS as a professional is focused on protecting assets, but also focused heavily on reducing failures and also improving project outcomes. And let me just cite something that AMP says. The AMP Protective Coating Specialist, PCS certification, it stands as a benchmark of excellence, equipping professionals with the advanced knowledge, skills, and expertise to lead coating projects with confidence and precision. So when you think about it, PCS certified individuals and professionals, they really safeguard not only project integrity, but they're also focused on such things as environmental compliance and, importantly, public safety. So like I said, the role is very, very wide and covers so many different aspects of industrial painting and coating operations. So to kick off today's Nooner, let's talk about why PCS certification, why it matters, not just for individual professionals, but for the entire protective coatings industry. Because in today's fast-paced coatings environment, projects are very complex and growing in complexity. Assets are more critically valuable than ever, especially related to critical infrastructure like energy, for example. And the expectations that are placed on the coatings professionals have never been higher. You know, asset owners want reliability, engineers want accuracy, inspectors, obviously, they want compliance, and contractors, they need clarity to do project work. So the PCS certification, it sits right at the center of all that. Now, as I mentioned, and I really gave that quote from AMP, the PCS certification really matters because first, it establishes competency. It tells a job site, and it tells also asset owners out there that this professional who has the PCS, that they understand coating systems, that they understand surface preparation standards and means and methods related to surface preparation. They do understand environmental controls and really the science that's behind corrosion protection. It means that they can interpret specifications correctly. They can also write specifications. They can really anticipate risks that are out there, and they can be part of that informed decision process that ultimately is going to prevent failures and have long-term success. Now, PCS certification, it matters because it also creates credibility. When a PCS certified professional steps onto a project, stakeholders should know that they're dealing with someone who's been verified, that they have been trained, and they've been tested. And they're someone who, can communicate effectively, not only with the inspectors and the contractors, but also engineers that are involved, project managers, asset owners directly. And there's someone who can explain the why that goes behind the work, not just the how. And also, PCS certification matters because it establishes trust, and this is critical in our industry. Coatings projects, they protect critical infrastructure. Anything from tanks, pipelines, bridges, water systems, industrial facilities, and these assets must perform safely, and they have to be reliable, really for decades. So a PCS brings the discipline, the judgment, and the technical authority that's really needed to ensure that coding systems are applied correctly and that the project meets the highest standards of quality. So in short, PCS certification elevates the entire profession. It really strengthens project teams. It can reduce costly errors. It can improve communication, and it can ensure that a protective coatings project work is done with a level of expertise that today's industry requires. And that's why PCS certification matters, because really it transforms a coatings technician into someone who's a coatings professional, and that coatings professional is a trusted leader as well. Now, PCS is also a bridge between stakeholders. And what I mean by that, the PCS certification does connect contractors, engineers, inspectors, and assets owners together. So through a PCS, there's so many aspects of the role that can play different aspects of what's needed for an asset owner, a project, what a contractor might need, what an inspection firm might need, tied into specifications. There's just so much that's tied into that. But PCS training, it also too focuses on reducing the miscommunication that can happen in project work. But it also can work towards dealing with delays that might happen, and also any type of hiccups that might happen due to a standard that's not a standard, a specification that's not perfectly written out. It could be a misinterpretation of a standard or best practice out there. And so really the PCS plays a pivotal role in safeguarding the integrity of the projects. And as I mentioned earlier, things such as environmental compliance and also importantly, public safety. So before we really kind of go a little bit deeper into this as a bridge, I also want to talk about that this work, when you think of coatings work, it doesn't happen in isolation. Every project that you're involved with, it has so many multiple players, so many things in action at any given time. Momentum, always continuous momentum. You got contractors, you got engineers, you got product manufacturers, you got other type of consultants that might be involved. You got the asset owners, you've got integrity man, you've got so many different roles that are there. You got safety personnel too, right? And sometimes you even get regulatory agencies that are involved. And remember, each of those stakeholders really have their own priorities, that they're more focused on anything. But they also have their own language. And really where things can happen is related to the interpretation of the specification. And with everybody trying to achieve everything they want to do singularly, it has to be orchestrated together. So this is where a certified protective coating specialist, as a professional, they really are, they can be the connector. So think about it as in that aspect too. They can orchestrate, they can be a connector. Now, again, asset owners, projects can dictate who runs the project managers, you have directors, you have all different type of people that might be involved, but it's not beyond the realm of possibility for a certified protective coating specialist to really manage a project, because that's part of what you're being prepared for. Writing specifications, interpreting specifications, understanding standards, understanding best practices that are out there, the methods and means that are brought, things that go into quality control, quality assurance, and also too when it comes to managing and also making sure the analytics related to a project that keep everything on target, everything's running according to schedule, and anticipate things that can happen, risk, adverse things that can happen to the schedule, and the what if situations where sometimes, for example, nature doesn't want to play with you and work with you. And now all of a sudden, now you've got all kind of problems because you've got monsoon happening that wasn't expected. So again, a certified protective coating specialist, they also bring clarity to a job site. They really do understand the technical intent of this specification, but they also understand the practical realities of field execution. And I think that's important to keep in mind is that things on paper can be so linear, so predictable, so perfect, but then there's the real world. And we know things that look great on paper don't always transcend into the real world. And so understanding both sides of that, the practical as well as having the specification and being able to move in between those two, that is super important as well. Because when it comes to field execution of projects or even verification, the requirements that the inspectors must follow, a PCS can translate expectations in a way that are more actionable when it comes to the steps that a crew can understand and execute. And I'm not talking about being prescriptive. We don't want to be prescriptive. We won't want to lay because it opens up liability, but also too, sometimes there's different ways to tackle every situation. And so the means and methods, an industrial coating contractor, if they can be certified, accredited or not, they're going to bring the best methods. They're going to be the means and also how they should approach certain situations and what part of the production they are on a coatings project. So lean in on that because they are definitely the experts of that. Don't get too prescriptive. Be very careful of that. Also, like I say, it opens up huge liability potentials for you because it's like I followed what you said and this is what happened. As I said, that PCS, a PCS is the connector. They're like an orchestra. So I actually had pulled from an article that was is done related to a gentleman who was named Alex, and he actually wrote about becoming a certified protective coating specialist. And basically, in the article, what he had mentioned that before he had earned his PCS, he really struggled working with the asset owner he was employed with project challenges. And some of his issues that were hot button for him was the miscommunication that can happen with contractors, for example. Also, too, he had issues related to expectations from internal engineers, third party technical support that was hired, related to the design of how things were going to be done, the coding process, and everything, and then also missteps when it came to the actual coatings inspection for the quality assurance side of it. And what he found over time that a lot of the projects he was managing, they would either hit sometimes delays or it would be costly because they'd have to do rework and everything like that. And he really did not seem to have a good process in place. And how he fixed that problem is he went through the process of qualifying, getting his C1, C2, getting his time in, also working on developmental credits, and he learned a lot so that when he went for the protective coatings specialist certification, he was very well prepared. But what the PCS did for him was to give him good structure to understand what he needed to do. And then from that, and also working with other PCSs, he was able to turn things around. He was able to not eliminate everything that would be a challenge, but to minimize it or have a quick fix when in certain challenges would approach versus an ad hoc. And I think that's important because PCS training and the certification, it really kind of closes those gaps that like Alex had. And with PCS, that level of knowledge, you're going to be able to read specifications accurately. You're going to be able to look for the cut and paste that are going to cause problems. You're going to look at certain elements within the specification. Does it make logical sense? Is it too prescriptive? Is it not enough? Is stuff missing in the specification? So you're going to have a better understanding of exactly what goes into a specification, how a specification is properly written according to industry best practices, but also too, can that specification be read accurately? Also, in reading that specification, you need to be able to anticipate technical questions and then communicate those potential issues early, because you don't want to get to a point where a miscommunication, misinterpretation, it could become an expensive failure or a costly rework. And also, too, I think by having a very strong specification, it can really help that inspector understand what the crew's doing and help the contractor too, what's really required for them when they bring production to work on a project. An asset owner is going to get a huge benefit from it because they're going to have a better understanding and comprehension of what the project truly needs to be successful. So a PCS in a way becomes a stabilizing force. It can be on the project site, the job site, also too an interaction and working between the contractors, asset owners, and engineers as well. They can be the person that ensures everyone is aligned, that they're informed, and then they're working towards the same outcome. So really, that's the power of a PCS. They can turn confusion into clarity, they can turn delays into progress, and they can turn fragmented teams, again, with everyone having their own goals and objectives, into a coordinated project partners. So let's recognize too the need for PCS certification. This is highly needed. I encourage everyone I talk to. I obtained it during SSPC time, and it's been a huge benefit for me in so many different ways. And I recommend people to, if you're not going to be potentially a coatings inspector, or you're not going to go a different route, and there's one route you really enjoy, which is working with projects, working with specifications, the fit for purpose kind of stuff, PCS is perfect for you. But we have to realize that in today's current times and moving into the future, there's an increasingly complexity that's happening with coatings, both as manufactured systems, but also when it comes to projects. And there's a huge demand for deeper technical knowledge. Addition to that, post-pandemic, we've seen so many people retire or decide to basically step out of full-time professional work and maybe either be consultants or pursue other things. And so we've seen a huge drain. Again, we're not pumping people out of college or pumping out of people out of trade schools that we're struggling to not only find industrial painters and keep them and to maintain them, but also too when it comes to the professions as well. I think we still struggle for those professional certifications, the inspectors, the PCSs, and other type of certifications that are out there in roles. So, as I said, coding systems are getting complex. Coding projects are getting complex, and there is a huge demand for deeper technical knowledge. So PCS is really a solution. And as I said earlier, it can work towards those communication gaps, the specification confusion that can happen, or clarity that needs to be done, but also related to even things such as failure analysis and other type of project challenges and specification challenges. I'm going to cite this out. This came out of that article I was talking about with Alex. It says missteps in communication between contractors, engineers, and stakeholders often lead to confusion and delays. How many of you watching right now have been on projects where there have been literally big arguments about interpreting a specification or even interpreting standards? And so, again, when it comes to communication, but also knowledge and understanding, these confusion points can cause costly rework, costly failures, and also delay in projects. So the way I view a PCS, they really do elevate the professional confidence, but also too, they can be relied on related to project oversight as well. I don't mean totally maybe managing a project, but just being part of the equation. Although they, in most cases, I've actually seen PCSs do manage projects to some extent. As I said, related to the coding systems, the projects have become more complex. They're more technical and they're more demanding as well. We're dealing with advanced coding formulations. We've got tighter environmental requirements, also windows. We've got more rigorous specifications, higher expectations from the asset owners. So the margin of error is shrinking year after year, and the need and a deeper need for technical knowledge is growing in leaps and bounds. And that's really where PCS certification can enter the picture. Many professionals reach a point where experience alone isn't enough. They can run a crew, they can operate equipment, they can follow a specification, but a lot of modern projects require a lot of times more than that. They can require the ability to not only interpret specifications accurately, but to fully understand the coding system that was brought to bear for the project. They can also be looked at to troubleshoot potential failures, and also communicate effectively across multiple disciplines. And again, everyone has their own agenda. So PCS certification provides a framework. It does give professionals the tools and the knowledge and understanding of why coding systems can fail and how specifications should be interpreted, and also how they should be written, and how to communicate technical requirements clearly to the contractors, the inspectors, the asset owners. So it closes the knowledge gaps that issues can arise from, anything from reworks to delays and also costly mistakes. But perhaps the most importantly, the PCS certification, as I said at my opening, it elevates professional confidence. PCS doesn't second guess decisions. They really should not second guess decisions. They should not hesitate when reviewing a specification. They don't need to struggle to explain technical issues to stakeholders. They can step into a project oversight from day one with clarity, with authority, and also assurance. And PCS certification transforms a coatings professional who might be in the industry. It really elevates them to a coating specialist as well. Someone who can lead, communicate, and solve problems at a higher level. And so that's why professionals really pursue PCS certification. It's not because they're struggling, but because they're ready to grow to a level of the expertise that today's coatings industry and asset owners and projects, what they all demand. Let's talk about PCS certification prerequisition and application process. This is a question I get asked a lot. What I'd highly recommend if you are looking to obtain the PCS is to go to the amp.org website. If you can look under certifications and look at PCS, it will give you everything you need to know. What are the basic requirements for you to go for the certification? What are the individual courses that you need to make sure that you have already taken and successfully passed? Also, too, ongoing requirements for professional development hours. What do you need for that? Also, too, it will give information of what's covered in the certification exam, and there are worksheets, workbooks, all kind of very good prep information for you. Um, the other thing too that I really highly recommend, that if you currently are holding, this is just my opinion, let's say you are a CIP level 2, I really do think you should also go and get the PCS certification. And I think it helps. And I don't say that it's going to help you, get more jobs and things like that, but it's going to really kind of strengthen up your resume, but also too, it will open up your eyes to other aspects. And I think that's important to have that. So I always say to level 2s, you ought to go get your PCS as well. Um, so part of the process is you have to have verification when it comes to your coding uh, experience. And really, a lot of times, like if you've got, you know, multiple years and you really need to have the minimum, and I want to say like 7 to 10 years is type of experience. The other aspect to get the certification is that as a pathway, it there's really you need to have a foundational requirement that will set the tone for yourself for your certification. Um, what I like to see, or what the industry likes to see, is that a candidate that gets into the program, that they have a really strong understanding of inspection principles, coding system behavior and performance, industry standards, definitely. And one of the things that AMP has points out that a prerequisite for PCS is having other certifications, especially at CIP level 2. And you have to think of the requirements. It's not just, kind of checking the box. It really, a lot of the certifications and the training and everything you need to have to go for the certification is a good baseline for advanced technical knowledge that really, as a PCS professional, you're going to be expected to carry. So what ends up happening is when you apply for it, you're going to have to demonstrate with verifiable industrial coatings experience, and you're looking at 7 to 10 years of experience, and a lot of it depends on your background and what you're doing. You can have a science or engineering degree, minimum of 7 years there. So without a degree, candidates must show a 10-year of hands-on coatings experience. And the experience isn't about time in the industry, it's about the depth of knowledge and experience. And really, AMP wants to see document involvement in anything from real projects, responsibilities, decision making, getting involved in recommendation of coding systems and means and methods and process and things like that. And also, too, part of the process is there for you to obtain those records, gather those records, employment verification, get reference letters, and basically build your application for this. So, where preparation becomes essential as a successful PCS applicant, it requires accurate documentation, and that's dealing with your work history and responsibilities. You need to have verification, and it's going to be from current and past supervisors, employers, or even on project leads as well. And you need to make sure too that you are documenting ongoing training that you're getting, the professional development hours, and that's important to show exactly your catalog of trainings, certifications, and other things that you've done to kind of help yourself become PCS compliant to really go for the PCS certification. Um, so think about it. When you're going and you're applying for PCS, you're not really just applying for credentials. You are truly demonstrating that you're ready to step into that higher tier of professional responsibilities. Let's go to required PCS training courses. And this is for building your technical and ethical competency. SSPC had two legacy uh, certifications. The first is the C1, which is the fundamentals of protective coatings. And this really goes in, this certification is a program, and also to a course, a course and also a certification. It really goes into depth into the science of protective coatings. It goes into the anything from the generic coding systems that are out there, the types that are out there. It really drills down to that. It also covers things when it comes to applying the protective coatings, certain environmental conditions, so many other certain situations when you're looking at environment, dealing in regulations and things like that. So it really does kind of be that the science of all that, the science and technical side of protective coatings. The C2 certification, which you need to also have for applying for and getting the PCS certification. C2 deals with planning and specifying coding projects. Um, of the two, the one I found extremely valuable is C2 because it really gets into specification writing. And I'm not talking cutting and paste. I'm talking actually writing out specifications. SSPC, Legacy SSPC had a very good handbook on what minimum needs to go into a protective coatings specification. And a lot of the principles, really all the principles from C2 were baked into that guide. If that guide still exists through the AMP, I'd recommend it. I'm not sure. I have to go look at their library and see if they still offer that of writing coding specifications. Um, Writing specifications is important. Um, typically when you do have a coding specification, yeah, they can fit, rinse and repeat and fit a lot of projects, but you got to be careful because it's not always the case. And there are times where you might look at a specification and you can tell they copied, paste from one to the other. This doesn't make sense. It's not connecting properly. It's causing confusion. And that's why I always highly recommend write them out. Don't let AI do it. Write it out. You can utilize AI to help you make sure you covered all your bases and things like that, but write it out. It's better if you write it out than copy and paste or say, AI, give it to me. Also, extremely valuable at C2, project design, project management, project, estimating, all the things that can go into knowing that when you're looking at a steel beam, an I-beam, whatever it might be, how to calculate the surface area that's going to need to be coated, how to plan for how much coating product is needed, how much is going to be wasted, what's the efficiency, all the things that go into the important part of a project to make it fair priced, but also profitable based on what's needed. Another course too, the ethics for the corrosion professional, which dovetails to the coatings professional as well, focused on integrity, being a transparent person, making sure that you don't have conflict of interest awareness, or at least you say, listen, I am performing this role, but also you should know that I have this aspect that could be considered a conflict. Now, again, the decision might be, that's fine, let's keep moving forward. Or it might be, yeah, that conflict is going to be a problem. You're not going to be able to participate in the way you wanted to in a project or even maybe a specification that might be being written, but probably more on the project side than the specification. So let's also to mention that the C1, the C2, and the ethics, they are required for that. As I said earlier, the PCS certification isn't just built on field experience. That's important. If you have field experience, that's important. But it's really kind of built, the foundation of it is on structured learning. And the learning type is going to be really an understanding of coatings, coating projects, project management. And the emphasis is on sharpening judgment, but also preparing you as a professional to potentially lead coding projects and be confident with it. So, as I said, AMP requires those three courses, C1, C2, the ethics course as well, but also ongoing education, additional PDHs and things like that. You need to maintain that list of what you're working for. Now, these courses really matter. And because together, they really are technically strong and they're strategically capable. And with the ethics on it, it really kind of helps ground you as a professional to make sure that everything you do is ethical, best practice, follows industry standards, and follows practices that are done by the industry. So those three courses give a professional the tools to understand coding systems at a deeper level, how to plan and specify projects with clarity, how to communicate with stakeholders confidently, how to make decisions or help support decisions that will protect assets, and also importantly, safety, public safety, contractor, worker safety, everyone's safety as well, environmental safety, things like that. But also lead projects potentially with the most being the most professional and also with high integrity. So the courses don't just only prepare you for the PCS exam. They prepare you for the PCS role. As I said earlier in this stream, it's huge. There's so many different roles that a person can be as a PCS. And that is a beautiful thing about this particular certification. Let's talk a little bit about preparing for the exam. You want to definitely use AMP's written exam preparation guide. Also, participate with the computer-based testing tools that are available. And for study planning, you need to have good discipline when it comes to study. Your time management is critical because, again, you're talking about a timed certification where you have to do some certain things to be able to show competency to obtain the designation. And the one aspect you've got to have total control on is anxiety and stress. You've got to be able to manage that, reduce it. You're never going to eliminate it, but if you can reduce it, it's going to be good. So, like I had said, really passing the exam isn't about luck. It's about strategy, structure, and using the right tools to build the confidence that you need to be able to take it. So the first step is using AMP's written exam preparation guide. And the guide breaks down the exam content into clear sections. It outlines the major topic areas and it helps you as a candidate understand exactly what you're going to be tested on. I think that's important, is to be able to help keep things focused because, again, with PCS, that certification exam could go on for days potentially, and that will not serve anybody properly. So the key is to breaking down the content. Break it down. You don't want to cram. You don't want any guessing going on. You really need to structure your study plan, and each topic gets the attention that it deserves. So look at that. Look at that guide. It will help you so much. So you also should practice using the computer-based testing tools. And the PCS exam is delivered electronically. So you becoming familiar on how computer-based training, how its interface works, also too, in practicing it can help reduce your stress on the exam day. These tools really help you as a candidate learn, how questions are formatted, how navigation works with the CBT, and also too, time management. You've got to be able to manage your time effectively during the tests. And this is especially important because the PCS exam, it blends technical knowledge with scenario-based judgment, and the comfort that you might have with CBT, with the computer-based training. It really allows you to focus on the content and not so worried about the form and the function of the testing system itself. But preparation is not going to be just about how to work the tools. The CBT is about study planning, and also time management. So when you're going for your certification, well prior to the certification exam, you really do need to set up weekly study goals. You want to give yourself goals. And also too, you want to break topics into small, bite-size sections. You want to review any difficult concepts to you, and also to the ones that are going to be the hot button ones, maybe like PA2, for example. You really want to have a good understanding of things like that. So you might have to go back and review those multiple times to get a good understanding of it. You also want to build consistency instead of relying on the last minute. I'm going to cram last minute studying. And you want to use the practice questions to help reinforce the learning process, but also it's a good quality check to see exactly how things are going for you. Now, it's important in the planning to make sure that you manage the anxiety, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on you. And it happens to me anytime I take a professional certification. And you know, you have to think of things as, trying to be mindfulness or calm, deep breathing, visualize what you're trying to achieve and follow that vision. Also, too, looking at the material the night before can really help maintain calm and focus. Again, not crash learning and things like that. Let's talk about passing the exam and achieving PCS certification. So, exam day readiness and confidence building. You want to make sure you can manage the emotions, but also understand exactly what the professional impact of passing the PCS is going to be on yourself. So, as a candidate, by the time you reach the exam, you've invested so much hours into training, studying, building the technical foundation that you really need to operate at a PCS level. But exam day is really where preparation meets performance. And as we talked about being ready for the exam and gone through, understanding the format for the testing, the exam guide, practicing, and also making sure that you have a mindset that you're confident is high. You have high confidence that you're going to be able to obtain the certification. So many PCS um, candidates, they really kind of tackle or how their approach is going to be in different ways. Use what's best for you, but also too, maybe reach out to a PCS and say, a current PCS, let's say a more modern PCS, what did you do? You have any recommendations on what I should do related to, me being, calming myself down or mindset or anything like that. So let's talk about the rewards of PCS certification related to career growth and industry recognition. And a couple areas I want to talk about is that you really are going to be showing that you're a professional related to offering the a high potential when it comes to project performance if you're working there, but also if you're involved in a project related to a trusted stakeholder in it. You also, because of your PCS certification, you might, in most cases, be looked upon to have higher level roles or even leadership opportunities within your company, within the trade, also working with asset owners on projects. And also, too, you have an enhanced ability to think about it, to not only write specifications and manage specifications, but potentially the same thing when it comes to protective coating projects. And in some cases, you could be the lead for that. So keep that in mind as well. You know, I think it's super important to have a good understanding of exactly that at PCS, it's really up to you what you want to do with it, where you want to take it. And you've got the methods, the means, the understanding, you've got the designation is to look at how can I leverage it based on how I want to be. So some advice for aspiring PCS, and this is the aspect of kind of closing out this Nooner stream, is to let's talk directly about you know this is a journey really, and you have to understand that PCS certification isn't something that you just sign up for, take it, you get it. It really is a journey, and it takes years to be able to achieve the PCS designation. But it's a really worthwhile goal, but it requires you having dedication. So I think that is super important to have an understanding. You want to start early, plan your steps. You want to stay committed. So, there are so many things that a PCS can do for you. You also want to be able to leverage that PCS related to your interaction within the industry. If you're going to write technical articles, it could be in your job that you currently have, or a future opportunity for you. But leverage that PCS positively, productively, but also for yourself too, to help you build, grow, and also expand um, your professional role within the protective coatings industry. And another thing too to highly recommend is to make sure that you are maintaining continuing education, those PDH hours and things like that. You are cataloging that. You want to make sure that also too that you're staying connected with industry events, the community within the protective coatings industry. It could be something specially to you. It could be just general overall protective coatings, but we all build communities. We all build networks. And also too, stay ahead of the technology trends. We're in a transformative time. There's so many things happening and things that will be happening in the next 5, 10, 15 years that can really set you for an awesome role within the protective coatings industry. And really, this advice matters. And the reason why I say that is because a PCS certification, it is a transformative designation. It's going to elevate your confidence. It's going to elevate your credibility. It's also going to benefit your career and take you into new places and do new things. But it really requires that mindset of growth, the willingness to invest in your professional development, and you want to stay committed to the process. So again, if you're thinking about PCS certification, you want to start now. You want to map everything out. You want to plan your steps. You want to use the resources. You want to stay connected with the community and the general industry, and also reach out to other certified individuals, CIP level 2s or higher, PCSs that are out there, and ask them questions of how they did their journey, what their current roles, what they did to get themselves in the position they are related to PCS. Because really, the industry is in high demand for professionals like the PCS, and those individuals will be looked to lead the industry. So, I guess this would be to close out this. Um, Throughout this broadcast, we really talked about skills, we talked about training, we talked about prerequisites, we talked about exam preparation. But one thing I'll leave with you, the real value of PCS certification goes far beyond the mechanics and the process. It changes how you see your work, how you carry yourself on a job site, and how others see you as well. It also is a catalyst for confidence. And that's important, right? So once you mastered things such as coding science, specification interpretation, writing specifications, surface preparation standards, coding application, and things like that, project planning, and then you walk onto a project, you really walk on a project with a different level of assurance because you're no longer hoping you're right. You really, to most level, have a full understanding of what right is. And that's important. That confidence will strengthen the communication. It will improve the decision making that's being made. And it's going to elevate your role on a project or in changing a specification or leading an industrial coatings program. The other thing is that PCS is a catalyst also too for leadership as well. Stakeholders really look to PCS certified professionals for guidance. It, they work perfectly hand to hand in most cases with inspectors, also too with contractors as well. And I'd say that asset owners really do value the PCS's insight. So the credentials really signal that you're not just part of a crew or an individual aspect of a team, that you're also potentially part of a leadership structure to help keep projects safe, compliant, successful. PCS certification also becomes a catalyst for long-term career success. It really does open doors to higher level roles. If you want to get into project responsibilities, oversight, leading projects, and there are so many opportunities that can be made available by having and showcasing exactly what you can do as a PCS, because it positions you as a respectable profession, again, in an industry that is desperately in need for skills, knowledge, and also two leaders. And so that's exactly what I want you to take away from this broadcast today. I want you to envision your own PCS journey. I want you to picture yourself stepping into the role of a PCS with confidence. Picture yourself leading projects with clarity and authority. Picture yourself becoming a professional that others rely on, not just as a title to have or a certification to have, designation, because the expertise that you've earned and the PCS is shown that as a designation shown that you have. So PCS certification is a commitment, it's a challenge, but it's a huge opportunity, one that reshapes careers and can elevate your place in the protective coatings industry. So with that, I want to say thank you so much for joining me today. This topic is something that a lot of people talk to me about related to my own PCS certification. And I highly recommend professionals. And again, you can be a coatings inspector, you can be someone who works for a coating manufacturer, you work in and around the protective coatings industry. Work towards getting the qualifications that are needed to be able to apply for and successfully challenge the certification. Become a certified protective coating specialist. There's no downside to having the designation and certification. And I want to leave you with that. So, everyone, have a good rest of your afternoon, your evening, or morning, no matter where in the world you're watching this broadcast.